Select one answer. A school uses iPads running iPadOS 17.4. A teacher without access to Apple School Manager wants to create classes. What feature enables this? A. Remote management. B. Temporary sessions. C. Unmanaged nearby classes. D. Class kit framework. The correct answer is C. Unmanaged nearby classes. Let's now go ahead and explain why. Unmanaged nearby classes is the feature that allows teachers to create classes without needing Apple School Manager, provided the devices run iPadOS 17.4 or macOS 14.4 and later. This is especially helpful for schools that may not yet be fully enrolled in Apple's ecosystem, but still want to leverage classroom management tools. Meanwhile, remote management refers to supervising and enrolling devices, not class creation. Temporary sessions are for guest users and are not intended for instructors setting up persistent class environments. Lastly, Class Kit Framework is designed to support educational apps but doesn't handle the creation of classes. Therefore, the best fit here is clearly unmanaged nearby classes. Select one answer. A user downloads an app from the App Store. How does this app interact with system integrity protection? A. It bypasses all checks automatically. B. It fails unless manually approved. C. It already complies with SMTP. D. It requires reinstallation from recovery mode. The correct answer is C. It already complies with SIP. Let's now explain why that is the case. Apps downloaded from the App Store are developed to meet Apple's System Integrity Protection, SIP, standards, so they already comply by default. This means they don't need extra permissions or manual approval to function correctly within SIP's security boundaries. On the other hand, saying the app bypasses SIP is incorrect because no app is allowed to bypass SIP. Apple enforces those restrictions tightly. Similarly, manual approval is not necessary for App Store apps regarding SIP compliance. Lastly, requiring reinstallation from recovery mode applies to serious system issues, not app compatibility with SIP. So the correct and most accurate answer is that the app already complies with SIP. For each statement below, indicate whether the answer is true or false. Face ID settings are located in the same section as Touch ID settings. True users can view their device's current software version by tapping on About. True admins can prevent users from using Face ID to unlock their devices. True. The home screen icon for settings can be removed if the user chooses. False. Let's now explain why these answers are correct. Face ID and Touch ID settings are grouped in the same section of the Settings app, either Face ID and passcode or Touch ID and passcode, depending on the device's hardware. This design makes it easier for users to find their biometric settings in one place. Likewise, the About section under General clearly displays the device's current software version, making it easy to check for updates or compatibility. Additionally, Jamf Pro allows administrators to configure restrictions, including disabling biometric methods like Face ID, which confirms that admins can block its use. However, the settings icon is part of the system and cannot be removed from the home screen by the user. So while the first three statements are true, the last one is definitely false. For each statement below, indicate whether the answer is true or false. The system report provides detailed hardware and software information about a Mac. True, erase all content and settings is a feature exclusive to privacy and security settings. False, Jamf Pro can enforce passcode policies to improve device security. True admins should avoid reviewing system settings because they can't manage them anyway. False. Let's go over why each of these is correct. The System Report tool is a built-in macOS utility that displays in-depth hardware, software, and network details. It's a reliable way to troubleshoot or audit a Mac's configuration, so that statement is true. However, the Erase All Content and Settings option isn't exclusive to privacy and security. It's actually located in the General section under Reset Options, making that statement false. Jamf Pro, on the other hand, gives administrators the ability to set and enforce passcode rules, ensuring stronger device security, so that's true. Lastly, saying admins should avoid reviewing system settings is incorrect. Reviewing those settings helps them manage and lock down configurations effectively through tools like Jamf Pro. Select three answers. What can be done using the System Report interface? A. Print the report. B. Send the report to Apple. C. Edit system preferences. D. Save the report locally. The correct answers are A. print the report, B, send the report to Apple, and D, save the report locally. Let's now go ahead and explain. The System Report Interface on macOS is a diagnostic tool that provides a detailed snapshot of hardware and software configurations. You can print the report if you need a physical copy for technical documentation or auditing. Additionally, the interface allows you to send the report to Apple, which is helpful when you're working with Apple support to troubleshoot an issue. You can also save the report locally, making it easy to archive or share digitally. However, you cannot use the system report to edit system preferences. It's strictly read-only. So the editing function listed in option C is not something the tool supports. Select one answer. How many volumes are included in the iOS and iPadOS file system structure? A, 1, B, 2, C, 3, D, unlimited. The correct answer is B, 2. Now, let's take a moment to explain. iOS and iPadOS use a file system that separates data for security and system integrity. Specifically, they feature two main volumes, a system volume and a data volume. The system volume is sealed and read-only, ensuring the operating system remains secure and unchanged, while the data volume holds user data like apps and documents. Saying there's only one volume is incorrect, as Apple explicitly splits system and user data. 3 volumes are not created by default, and the volume count is fixed, not unlimited, so options C and D don't apply. The answer is 2 volumes by design. Select one answer. An admin is preparing a Mac for trade-in and wants to ensure all internal storage is erased securely and properly. What should they do if the Mac has Apple Silicon? A. Use Disk Utility from Launchpad. B. Use Terminal to delete files manually. C. Use Erase Assistant. D. Use Finder to move files to the trash. The correct answer is C. Use Erase Assistant. Let's now explain the reasoning behind this. Erase Assistant is the recommended tool for securely wiping all data on Macs with Apple Silicon or a T2 security chip. It ensures a thorough and secure reset, removing system settings, data, and user accounts safely. Although Disk Utility can be used for formatting drives, it doesn't fully handle system-level erasure the way Erase Assistant does. Terminal deletion is risky and may leave behind sensitive information if not done correctly. Similarly, moving files to the trash only affects visible user files and does not wipe system data or account information. Therefore, using Erase Assistant is the most complete and secure method for preparing a Mac for trade-in. Select one answer. An IT manager needs to increase storage reliability using multiple drives. What should they configure in Disk Utility? A. A disk image. B. RAID set. C. Snapshot. D. Volume mount point. The correct answer is B. RAIDs. Take a moment to explain why. A RAID set allows you to combine multiple physical drives into one logical unit to boost performance, ensure data redundancy, or both, depending on the RAID level. Disk Utility supports creating and managing RAID sets, which makes it the go-to option for enhancing storage reliability. In contrast, a disk image is just a single file used to store and transfer data. It does nothing to improve drive reliability. Snapshots, while useful for versioning and backups, aren't managed through Disk Utility. Finally, volume mount points determine where volumes appear in the file system, but they don't impact performance or reliability. That's why the correct answer is RAID set. Select one answer. What section of System Settings allows you to rename your Mac? A. General, About. B. Network, Sharing. C. Users and Groups. D. Privacy and Security. The correct answer is A. General, About. Let's now explain the reasoning. To rename your Mac, you simply go to the General section and click About, where you'll find the editable name field. This is the official location Apple provides for changing the device name. Although Network Sharing may display the name in certain contexts, it doesn't let you rename the device from there. Users and Groups only manages user accounts, not the device's name. Lastly, Privacy and Security focuses on permissions, passwords, and other security-related settings, not naming options. So the proper place to rename your Mac is clearly under General, About. Select one answer. Which directory is excluded from SIP protections and can be written to by third-party apps? A. System. B. U/local. C/sbin. The correct answer is B/u/local. Now let's break down why this is correct. System Integrity Protection, SIP, is a macOS security feature that locks down critical system locations to prevent unauthorized modifications. However, the /r local directory is intentionally left out of SIP protection so that developers and third-party tools can store and modify their files safely. This makes it ideal for custom scripts and software installations that don't belong to the core system. On the other hand, /system, /bin, and /sbin are fully protected by SIP, meaning even users with administrative privileges can't write to them without disabling SIP. So, /usrlocal is the correct and secure location for third-party access. Select one answer. Which of the following is true about installing apps like Firefox on macOS? A. They must be downloaded via the App Store. B. They are auto-installed to /system applications. C. They are downloaded from the developer's website and dragged to applications. D. They are always quarantined by Gatekeeper. The correct answer is C. They are downloaded from the developer's website and dragged to applications. Let's go ahead and explain why this is the correct choice. Apps like Firefox are distributed directly from the developer's website, not through the App Store. Users typically download a .dmg file, open it, and then drag the app into the applications folder. This manual installation method is standard for many third-party apps on macOS. They are not auto-installed into /system applications because that location is protected and not writable by users. While Gatekeeper does verify downloaded apps, it does not always quarantine them. Once verified and approved, the apps are allowed to run. And since Firefox isn't available on the App Store, requiring a download from there would be inaccurate. So the correct and most accurate method of installing apps like Firefox is by downloading from the developer's site and manually dragging the app to applications. Select one answer. What is required to install an app from the App Store for the first time? A. iCloud Drive must be enabled. B. The user must have a managed Apple ID. C. An Apple ID is required. D. The device must be supervised. The correct answer is C. An Apple ID is required. Let's now explain why this is the case. To install an app from the App Store, whether it's free or paid, the most fundamental requirement is having a valid Apple ID. This account is used to authenticate the user, manage app ownership, and enable downloads. iCloud Drive has no relation to installing apps. It only handles cloud-based file storage. While managed Apple IDs can be used in institutional settings, personal Apple IDs work just as well unless restrictions are applied. Lastly, supervision applies to administrative control and management of the device, not to whether an app can be installed. Therefore, the essential requirement is simply having an Apple ID. Select two answers. Which two methods allow an app to sync data outside the device's local storage? A. iCloud Sync. B. Server Sync from App Developer. C. Bluetooth Transfer. D. AirDrop. The correct answers are A. iCloud Sync and B. Server Sync from App Developer. Let's go ahead and break this down. iCloud Sync enables apps to store and update data across multiple devices using Apple's cloud infrastructure. This is commonly used for things like notes, contacts, and app-specific data. Similarly, some developers implement their own server sync solutions, allowing their apps to back up and retrieve user data via their own cloud services. Bluetooth transfer, while useful for short-range file sharing, doesn't support automatic syncing or backups. AirDrop is designed for one-time file transfers between nearby Apple devices, not for continuous or cloud-based data syncing. Therefore, only iCloud Sync and Server Sync from app developers are valid methods for syncing data outside local storage. Select one answer. A Jamf administrator manually adds an LDAP server, but is unsure if user attributes are mapped correctly. What is the best way to verify the mappings? A. Create a new configuration profile for testing. B. Check the mappings using the test button under LDAP servers. C. Deploy a smart group based on user attributes. D. Delete the LDAP server and start again. The correct answer is B. Check the mappings using the test button under LDAP servers. Now let's walk through the explanation. Jamf Pro provides a built-in test button in the LDAP server settings, allowing administrators to confirm whether user and group attributes are correctly mapped before using them in configurations or policies. This method gives immediate feedback and is the most direct way to validate LDAP connections and attribute mappings. Creating a configuration profile isn't relevant here since it doesn't evaluate LDAP mappings. Similarly, deploying a smart group based on potentially incorrect mappings could lead to misconfigured groups and should only be done after confirming mappings. Finally, deleting the LDAP server is unnecessary because Jamf provides built-in testing tools to solve this exact problem. So, the best and most efficient solution is to use the test button. For each statement below, indicate whether the answer is true or false. The sidebar in Jamf Pro provides access to computers, devices, users, and settings sections. True advanced computer searches can only be run once and cannot be saved for later. False configuration profiles and policies can be created from the computers section. True, the devices section allows you to manage only iOS and iPadOS devices. False. Now let's explain each one for clarity. The sidebar in Jamf Pro indeed serves as the main navigation panel, giving admins access to core areas such as computers, devices, users, and settings. So the first statement is true. On the second point, although searches can be run on demand, advanced computer searches can also be saved and reused, making that statement false. As for the third, Jamf Pro's Computers section lets administrators create and manage configuration profiles and policies, confirming that statement is true. Lastly, the Devices section supports more than just iOS and iPadOS. It also includes tvOS and visionOS devices, so saying it manages only iOS and iPadOS is incorrect. Therefore, that final statement is false. For each statement below, indicate whether the answer is true or false. Jamf Pro accounts can be forced to reset their passwords at next login. True, SMTP must be configured before users can receive Jamf Pro email notifications. True, advanced computer searches can only be viewed by accounts with write privileges. False, users with enrollment-only privileges cannot access the server interface at all. False. Let's now explain why each answer is correct. First, Jamf Pro does allow admins to enforce a password reset at the next login, which is helpful for securing new or updated accounts. Next, SMTP configuration is absolutely required for Jamf Pro to send out any email notifications, so that statement is true. The third one is false because viewing advanced computer searches only requires read privileges. Write access is not necessary. Lastly, enrollment only, users can indeed access a limited portion of the interface, specifically to send enrollment invitations. So it's incorrect to say they can't access the server interface at all. For each statement below, indicate whether the answer is true or false. A category's priority determines how frequently it is applied to policies. False categories can be edited after creation to update the name or priority. True departments are created under Settings Network in Jamf Pro. True building assignments can be used to scope configuration profiles. True. Let's go through the explanation for each. The idea that a category's priority affects how often it's applied is false. Priority in this case is only used to sort or display items in self-service, not control application frequency. However, you can update an existing category's name or priority even after creation by going into the Categories section, which makes that statement true. Departments like buildings are created and managed from Settings Network in Jamf Pro, confirming the third statement as true. Finally, building assignments are useful in defining the deployment scope of configuration profiles and policies, which makes the last statement true as well. Select one answer. After a fleet of iPads is upgraded from iOS 15 to iOS 16, the IT team notices an immediate update in Jamf Pro's inventory data. What explains this rapid update? A. The OS automatically contacts Apple and sends updates to Jamf. B. Declarative device management uses the status channel to push updates. C. User enrollment is disabled. D. A forced manual inventory update was performed. The correct answer is B. Declarative device management uses the status channel to push updates manually. Let's now explain why. When devices running iOS 16 or later are enrolled and managed through declarative device management, they use the status channel to report changes, such as OS upgrades, immediately. This eliminates the need for a manual inventory update. It also explains why Jamf Pro reflects the updated data so quickly. In contrast, Apple does not relay OS changes directly to Jamf, so option A is incorrect. Option C, regarding user enrollment, isn't relevant here because declarative device management is supported even under user enrollment. And option D, a manual inventory update, would require administrator action, which contradicts the question's detail about an automatic update. Therefore, the real reason is declarative management via the status channel. Select one answer. An admin wipes an iPad that supports eSIM. After wiping, they want to retain the cellular plan so the device remains connected. What must they do when sending the command? A. Ensure the device has Bluetooth turned on. B. Select the option to retain cellular data plans. C. Send a renew MDM profile command. D. Perform the wipe using Apple Configurator. The correct answer is B. Select the option to retain cellular data plans. Let's now explain this clearly. When using Jamf Pro to wipe an iPad that supports eSIM, there's an optional setting within the wipe command to retain cellular data plans. This is especially useful for keeping the device connected after the reset. Bluetooth has no relation to data plan retention, so option A is incorrect. Option C, renew MDM profile, simply refreshes the profile but doesn't impact wiping or cellular connectivity. And option D, using Apple Configurator, isn't necessary in this case because Jamf Pro can handle the wipe command directly. That's why selecting the retention option during the wipe process is the right action. Select one answer. A school has macOS 10.15.7 installed on student computers. They want to MDM enable the current logged-in user during enrollment. Which method should they use? A. User-initiated enrollment. B. Manual configuration of user-level profiles. C. Reboot into recovery mode. D. Install an EDU profile. The correct answer is A. User-initiated enrollment. Now let's go over why. User-initiated enrollment is the only method that automatically MDM enables the currently logged-in user during the enrollment process, provided the macOS version supports it, which in this case, macOS 10.115.7 does. Manual configuration of user-level profiles isn't enough to trigger MDM enablement. Rebooting into recovery mode doesn't affect MDM settings at all. It's more related to system recovery or reinstallation. Lastly, installing an EDU profile can only happen after the user is already MDM enabled, so it's not a starting step. This makes user-initiated enrollment the only correct and complete option. Select one answer. A team wants to reassign multiple API clients to use a shared, reusable role rather than managing individual privileges. What is the best way to achieve this? A. Edit each client and manually assign privileges. B. Create a new API role and assign it to the clients. C. Generate a new client secret for each client. D. Delete all existing API clients and recreate them. The correct answer is B. Create a new API role and assign it to the clients. Let's now explain why this approach is best. Creating a new API role allows for centralized and reusable privilege management. Once the role is defined, it can be applied to multiple API clients, ensuring consistency and simplifying administration. Editing each client individually is inefficient and prone to error, especially at scale. Generating new client secrets has nothing to do with permissions. It deals with authentication. And deleting and recreating clients just adds unnecessary complexity and risk. By using roles, you streamline privilege control and ensure better long-term management. Select one answer. An enterprise network requires deep packet inspection for all outgoing HTTPS traffic. After enrolling iOS devices, the admin realizes push notifications are not working. What is the likely cause? A. APNs does not support HTTPS decryption via SSL inspection. B. Devices need manual profile reinstallation. C. Jamf Pro must use port 25 instead of 443. D. The devices were enrolled using account-driven enrollment. The correct answer is A. APNs does not support HTTPS decryption via SSL inspection. Let's go ahead and explain why. Apple Push Notification Service, APNs, relies on a secure and direct connection between the device and Apple's servers. If the enterprise network uses SSL inspection to decrypt HTTPS traffic, it breaks this trusted connection and prevents APNs from functioning properly. Manual profile reinstallation won't resolve the issue because the problem lies in network interference, not configuration. Port 25 is unrelated. It's used for SMTP email traffic, not APNs, which uses port 43. Finally, the type of enrollment, whether account-driven or otherwise, doesn't affect the push notification delivery mechanism. So the root cause here is that SSL inspection disrupts APNs, which does not allow HTTPS decryption. Select one answer. The IT team wants to ensure the management account password is rotated every month across all macOS devices. What is the best way to achieve this? A. Use the Reset Password option from the Users tab. B. Create a recurring policy with the Rotate the Account Password option selected. C. Delete and recreate the management account monthly. D. Enable self-service for users to rotate their own passwords. The correct answer is B. Create a recurring policy with the Rotate the Account Password option selected. Let's now explain why. Jamf Pro supports automated password rotation using Local Administrator Password Solution (LEPS) functionality. By creating a recurring policy and enabling the Rotate the Account Password option, admins can ensure that the management account password is securely and automatically updated on a regular schedule across all macOS devices. Using the Reset Password button only works for manual changes and applies to individual devices. It's not scalable. Deleting and recreating the management account every month is time-consuming and unnecessary. Finally, self-service doesn't allow users to rotate the management account password, as this is a privileged system-level function. Hence, setting a recurring policy is the best and most secure option. Select one answer. An IT administrator needs to update asset tags for 500 devices in Jamf quickly without manually editing each record. They want a simple GUI-based method. Which approach should they take? A. Write a custom script to connect directly to the Jamf database. B. Open each device record manually and update the asset tags. C. Request Jamf support to perform a backend update. D. Use the MIPT to upload a CSV file with the new asset tags. The correct answer is D. Use the MUT to upload a CSV file with the new asset tags. Let's now explain why. The MUT mass update tool is specifically built to help Jamf administrators make large-scale updates efficiently using a graphical user interface. By uploading a CSV file containing device identifiers and new asset tag values, admins can automate the process across hundreds of records. Writing a custom script as an option A is risky and not supported by Jamf. Option B, manually updating 500 records, is time-consuming and unnecessary with tools like the Mute. Option C, contacting Jamf support, is also inefficient. Mute gives admins the power to make these changes on their own. That's why using the MUT is the best solution here. Select one answer. An organization uses Jamf Pro with multiple PreStage enrollments. A device needs to be reassigned to a different one. What is the correct process? A. Disable and re-enable the original enrollment. B. Add it directly to the new PreStage without changes. C. First remove it from the original PreStage scope. D. Delete all enrollments and start fresh. The correct answer is C. First remove it from the original PreStage scope. Let's now go over the explanation. Jamf Pro requires that a device be removed from its current PreStage enrollment scope before it can be assigned to a different one. This ensures there's no conflict or overlap in assignment. Trying to add the device directly to a new PreStage scope without removing it from the original will be blocked. Simply disabling and re-enabling the original enrollment does nothing to reassign the device. And deleting all enrollments would be overkill, inefficient, and unnecessary. The clean and correct method is to first remove the device from the original PreStage scope. Select two answers. What are two valid purposes of configuring patch policies in Jamf Pro? A. To manually trigger application installations from the Jamf binary. B. To automate the update of third-party macOS software titles. C. To provide real-time patch status reports across devices. D. To allow users to select which update they prefer. The correct answers are B. To automate the update of third-party macOS software titles, and C. To provide real-time patch status reports across devices. Let's explain this in more detail. Patch policies in Jamf Pro are designed to streamline software update management. One of their main purposes is to automate the update process for third-party macOS applications, ensuring that all devices stay current with minimal admin effort. Additionally, they generate patch status reports that help IT administrators track which devices have received updates, making it easier to monitor and manage compliance. Option A is incorrect because while the Jamf binary can run policies, triggering installs isn't a primary function of patch policies specifically. Option D is also incorrect because patch policies enforce updates defined by admins. Users cannot freely choose which version to install. Thus, the correct and intended uses are automation and status reporting. Select one answer. What is the default behavior of the Jamf Pro dashboard regarding data refresh? A. Refreshes every 10 minutes automatically. B. Refreshes only when a new object is created. C. Requires manual refresh to show updated data. D. Refreshes every time a user logs in. The correct answer is C. Requires manual refresh to show updated data. Let's go ahead and explain why. The Jamf Pro dashboard does not include an automatic refresh mechanism. To view the most up-to-date data, users must manually refresh the dashboard themselves. This design ensures that users are in control of when data is reloaded, which is helpful in environments where large changes could otherwise cause frequent updates and confusion. Option A is incorrect because the dashboard does not refresh on a timer. Option B is also incorrect since creating a new object doesn't automatically trigger a refresh. Option D is misleading. Logging in won't reload dashboard data unless the user actively refreshes it. Therefore, the correct answer is that manual refresh is required. Select one answer. What is the recommended port number for secure SMTP communication in Jamf Cloud? A. 25, B. 465, C. 587, D. 993. The correct answer is C. 587. Let's now explain why this is the recommended option. Jamf Cloud recommends using port 587 with TLS for sending secure SMTP communications. This port is widely supported and preferred for authenticated email delivery over encrypted connections. Port 25 is often blocked by cloud providers, including Jamf Cloud, due to its association with spam and vulnerability risks. Port 465 was once used for SMTPS, SMTP over SSL. Modern best practices favor port 587 with Start TLS for better compatibility and security. Lastly, port 993 is for IMAP over SSL and is unrelated to SMTP. So for secure and reliable email delivery in Jamf Cloud, port 587 is the right choice. Select one answer. What happens if you use the same username for the local administrator account in both PreStage and user-initiated enrollment? A. The account is created twice. B. Enrollment completes successfully with a shared password. C. The account may not be created correctly and LAPS won't function. D. There's no impact inner. The correct answer is C. The account may not be created correctly and LAPS won't function. Let's go ahead and explain why. Using the same local admin account username in both PreStage and user-initiated enrollment creates a conflict. This can prevent the account from being created correctly or at all. More importantly, it disrupts LAPS, Local Administrator Password Solution, functionality, as Jamf Pro relies on specific account handling through the API to rotate and retrieve passwords securely. Contrary to what option A suggests, the system won't create the account twice. It will likely fail or behave unpredictably. Option B is incorrect because shared credentials can break security workflows like LAPS, and option D is false. This setup can cause serious issues. So, avoid duplicating the local admin username across enrollment methods. Select one answer. You're designing a deployment strategy for Adobe Reader using app installers. Your security policy requires that built-in auto-updates from the app developer be disabled. What should you configure during deployment? A. Enable self-service and use global notifications. B. Select the Install Supporting Configuration Profiles option. C. Set Force Quit Grace Period to 0. D. Use the Rosetta Architecture setting. The correct answer is B. Select the Install Supporting Configuration Profiles option. Let's go over the explanation. When using app installers in Jamf Pro, selecting Install Supporting Configuration Profiles ensures that a configuration profile is automatically applied to disable the built-in auto-updater in the deployed app, like Adobe Reader. This is essential for enforcing strict update control in managed environments. Option A affects user notifications, not application behavior. Option C controls how quickly an app closes when updates are forced, but doesn't influence the app's built-in updater. Option D pertains to running Intel-based apps on Apple Silicon devices using Rosetta, which is unrelated to update behavior. Therefore, the correct choice is to use the supporting configuration profile during deployment. Select three answers. What three types of profile installation statuses can you track in Jamf Pro dashboard? A. Complete. B. Remaining. C. Pending. D. Failed. The correct answers are A. Complete, C. Pending, and D. Failed. Let's break it down clearly. In Jamf Pro's dashboard, you can track profile installation status using specific labels. Complete indicates that the profile was successfully installed on the device. Pending means the device has not yet received or installed the profile. Failed shows that the installation was attempted but did not succeed. Option B, remaining, might appear in some interface contexts, but it's not used as a formal status category in the dashboard's tracking widgets. Therefore, the three correct status types you can monitor are complete, pending, and failed. Select one answer. Which Jamf Pro attribute indicates whether a computer has an MDM-enabled user? A, MDM capability, B, enrollment method, C, setup assistant, D, bootstrap token. The correct answer is A, MDM capability. Now let's go over why. The MDM capability attribute is specifically used in Jamf Pro to indicate whether a local user account on a Mac is MDM enabled. This is critical for managing functions such as profile installation, policy enforcement, and remote commands that rely on MDM user context. Option B, enrollment method, tells you how the device was enrolled, e.g. automated or user-initiated, but not the MDM user status. Option C, setup assistant, is a process involved in device setup, not an attribute Jamf uses for tracking MDM enablement. And option D, bootstrap token, deals with secure token handling and FileVault management, but does not directly reflect MDM user enablement. So, to check if a device has an MDM-enabled user, always refer to the MDM capability. Select one answer. Which action allows devices that weren't purchased from Apple to be enrolled in automated device enrollment? A, register the serial numbers in Apple Business Manager. B, contact the reseller for a replacement purchase. C, use Apple Configurator. D, request approval from AppleCare. The correct answer is C, use Apple Configurator. Now let's clarify why this is the correct approach. Apple Configurator allows administrators to manually add devices that weren't purchased directly from Apple or an authorized reseller into Automated Device Enrollment (DD key). This is especially useful for BYOD, bring your own device scenarios, or refurbished devices that need to be managed within Jamf Pro. Option A is incorrect because Apple Business Manager does not support direct serial number entry for enrollment. Devices must be added through Apple Configurator. Option B is unnecessary if the device works and is eligible. Option D, requesting approval from AppleCare, is unrelated to device enrollment workflows. Therefore, to add such devices to ADE using Apple Configurator is the appropriate method. Select two answers. Which two conditions must be met before sending remote commands in Jamf Pro? A, device must be supervised. B, push certificate must be configured. C, user must be logged in. D, enable push notifications must be set. The correct answers are B, push certificate must be configured, and D, enable push notifications must be set. Here's why. For Jamf Pro to send remote commands such as lock, wipe, or restart, it relies on Apple Push Notification Service, APNs. Two core requirements must be in place. A valid push certificate must be configured in Jamf Pro, and push notifications must be enabled for devices. These ensure that commands are transmitted securely and successfully to the device. Option A is incorrect because not all remote commands require supervision. Some work even on unsupervised devices. Option C is also incorrect since the user does not need to be logged in for Jamf to issue commands. Therefore, the minimum required conditions are the push certificate and enabled push notifications. Select two answers. Which remote commands are not available as mass actions in Jamf Pro? A, enable disable lost mode. B, clear screen time passcode. C, enable disable personal hotspot. D, update OS version. The correct answers are A, enable disable lost mode, and B, clear screen time passcode. Let's explain. Some remote commands in Jamf Pro are limited to individual device management for safety and control reasons. Enable, disable lost mode, and clear screen time passcode fall into this category. These actions are highly specific and often require contextual awareness, so Jamf restricts them to one device at a time. In contrast, options like enable disable personal hotspot and update OS version are designed to support mass actions, allowing administrators to apply these changes across multiple devices simultaneously. This is useful for broader policy enforcement. Therefore, only A and B are restricted from being mass actions. Which of the following is a risk of using a temporary provisioning account as the first FileVault-enabled user? A, the account will override the MDM management account. B, the account will disable user-level profiles. C, the account may cause token conflicts with system extensions. D, the account may be deleted, leaving no FileVault-enabled user. Correct answer, D. The account may be deleted, leaving no FileVault-enabled user. Now let's explain why. When a temporary provisioning account is used and ends up being the first user to authenticate after FileVault is enabled, that account becomes the sole FileVault-enabled user on the device. However, if that account is deleted afterward, as often happens with temporary or provisioning accounts, the system is left with no FileVault-enabled users. This becomes a critical issue as no user will be able to unlock the encrypted drive at boot. In contrast, the Jamf management account does not automatically override FileVault settings unless it's the first to log in. Similarly, being an admin in Jamf Pro or holding a Bootstrap token does not automatically make the user FileVault enabled. So, while they sound like plausible answers, they don't reflect the actual behavior of macOS encryption policies. Which user account becomes the first FileVault-enabled user? A, the Jamf management account. B, the MDM Bootstrap token holder. C, any user marked as admin in Jamf Pro. D, the first user to authenticate after FileVault is enabled. Correct answer, D, the first user to authenticate after FileVault is enabled. Now let's explain why this is the right answer. The first user to successfully log in after FileVault is turned on automatically becomes the FileVault-enabled user. This is important because that user will have the ability to unlock the disk when the Mac starts up. On the other hand, the Jamf management account isn't guaranteed to be the first to log in, so it won't automatically become FileVault enabled. Although the MDM Bootstrap token is vital for secure token operations, it does not directly determine FileVault status. And finally, just being marked as an admin in Jamf Pro doesn't mean the user will be FileVault enabled unless they log in first after FileVault is activated. So again, the correct answer is the first user to authenticate after FileVault is enabled. Your organization is planning to streamline login for administrators across all Jamf platform services. They use Microsoft Entra ID as their identity provider. Based on best practices, which SSO method should you implement? Select one answer. A. Use SSO with OIDC through Jamf account. B. Use Jamf ID. C. Use SSO with SAML. D. Use local Jamf Pro accounts only. The correct answer is A. Use SSO with OIDC through Jamf account. Now let's explain this clearly. When working with Microsoft Entra ID, the best practice is to use OIDC through Jamf account. This approach provides secure, streamlined authentication across Jamf Pro, Jamf School, and other Jamf services using a modern cloud IDP. Since OIDC is an open standard supported by Entra ID, it aligns perfectly for unified login management. In contrast, Jamf ID is more appropriate for smaller setups without an external identity provider. Similarly, SAML is better suited for scenarios like user enrollment and self-service access, not administrative logins across the platform. Lastly, local Jamf Pro accounts don't offer centralized SSO capabilities and can't integrate with external IDPs, making them a poor choice in this case. That's why OIDC through Jamf account is the recommended option here. You are troubleshooting a managed Mac and need to confirm where application usage reports are stored before being sent to the Jamf Pro server. Where should you check? A. Library Application Support / Usage Reports. B. Library Application Support Jet Waiting Room. C. Library Preferences com.jamfsoftware.jamf.plist. D. vars log / jamf.log. Correct answer A. Library Application Support / Jamf Usage Reports. Let's go through the explanation together. The correct directory is library / application support / jamf / usage report /. This is where Jamf stores application usage data locally before sending it to the Jamf Pro server. This data helps administrators track how apps are being used across managed Macs. Option B, the waiting room folder, is used for storing cached installer packages, not usage reports. Option C, the plist file in Preferences, contains configuration data and settings for Jamf's framework, but it does not log or store usage activity. Finally, Option D refers to the Jamf log file, which records Jamf binary activity and general operations, not data related to application usage. So again, if you're trying to verify where usage data is stored before uploading, you should check the usage reports directory. A device has Jamf self-service installed, but the jailbreak detected field shows not reported. What is likely the cause? Select one answer. A. The device hasn't launched self-service. B. The device is not enrolled in Jamf Pro. C. Lost mode is enabled on the device. D. The user hasn't accepted a license agreement. The correct answer is A. The device hasn't launched self-service. Let's explain why. Jailbreak detection data in Jamf Pro is updated only when the self-service app is launched on the device. This means that even if the app is installed, unless the user actually opens it, the system can't report jailbreak status, hence not reported. Now, the option about the device not being enrolled in Jamf Pro doesn't apply here because unenrolled devices wouldn't appear in the inventory at all, so that can't be the cause. Similarly, enabling lost mode on a device has no impact on jailbreak detection. It deals with location tracking and device lockdown. Finally, while license agreements are important for app use, they have nothing to do with the jailbreak reporting mechanism. So again, the key takeaway here is unless the user launches self-service at least once, jailbreak detection remains inactive. An admin is adjusting the computer inventory display settings and wants to hide a field they no longer need. What action must they take? Select one answer. A. Rename the field in the list. B. Deselect the checkbox next to the attribute field. C. Right-click the column header and delete it. D. Disable the attribute in the Jamf binary. The correct answer is B. Deselect the checkbox next to the attribute field. Let's break it down. If an admin wants to stop a particular field from appearing in the inventory display, the appropriate method is simply to uncheck the box next to that attribute in the settings. This removes it from view without affecting the actual data or system operations. Now, renaming the field in the list is not even an available option within Jamf Pro's inventory settings, so that's not valid. Right-clicking the column header and deleting it isn't supported in the results view either. It doesn't remove or hide the data from the inventory display. And disabling the attribute in the Jamf binary wouldn't affect the display here because binary level changes don't control what's shown in the inventory. So, when you want to clean up your display and only show the fields you need, just deselect that checkbox. It's quick, simple, and exactly what Jamf recommends. A student receives a book automatically on their iPad, but not on their school-issued Mac. Both devices are assigned to the student in Jamf Pro. What explains this behavior? Select one answer. A. macOS is not compatible with managed books. B. Managed books only install automatically on mobile devices. C. The book must be manually downloaded from iBooks. D. The Mac is using a different Apple ID. The correct answer is B. Managed books only install automatically on mobile devices. Let's talk through this. Jamf Pro is designed to automatically install managed books on supported mobile devices like iPads and iPhones. However, when it comes to macOS devices, the same automatic installation doesn't apply. Instead, the system uses a fallback method, typically through self-service, where the student has to manually initiate the installation. Now, option A says macOS is not compatible with managed books. That's incorrect because macOS can indeed use managed books. It just doesn't auto-install them. Option C suggests the book must be manually downloaded from iBooks. That's not true either because Jamf uses self-service, not iBooks, for fallback distribution. Lastly, D mentions a different Apple ID, but the devices are already assigned in Jamf Pro, so ID mismatch isn't the issue here. So in summary, the difference in behavior is expected. Only mobile devices get automatic book installation, while Macs require user action through self-service. For each statement below, indicate whether the answer is true or false. The Make App Managed If Possible option is enabled automatically when apps are deployed automatically. True, Jamf Pro cannot display apps in self-service once they are installed. False, managed app configurations allow admins to tailor app settings for each user or device. True, when deploying an unmanaged app, administrators can still restrict app removal. False. Now let's explain. Starting with the first statement, it is true because when apps are deployed automatically, the Make App Managed If Possible setting becomes active and cannot be disabled. This ensures the app can be controlled and configured through MDM. The second statement is false, since apps that have already been installed can still be shown in self-service, depending on how the app policy is configured. Next, the third statement is true. Managed app configurations allow IT admins to apply app settings uniquely per user or device, making deployments more flexible and tailored. Lastly, the fourth statement is false, because restriction features like preventing app deletion only apply to managed apps. If an app is unmanaged, Jamf Pro doesn't have the ability to enforce those kinds of controls. If you want to pull purchasing details from Apple's Global Service Exchange, GSX, what condition must be met in Jamf Pro? A GSX connection must be set up. B, the device must be supervised. C, you must be using macOS 14 or later. D, you must have full access privileges. The correct answer is A GSX connection must be set up. Let's explain why this is the case. To access purchasing information directly from Apple's Global Service Exchange, Jamf Pro needs a properly configured GSX connection. This setup allows the search button for purchasing details to appear in Jamf Pro's interface. Conversely, supervision status isn't necessary for this task, which rules out option B. Option C, referring to macOS version 14 or later, is irrelevant here. GSX access is a server-side capability, not dependent on the client's OS. Lastly, while having full access privileges can be helpful, it isn't the main prerequisite for enabling GSX integration. Therefore, the essential requirement is establishing a GSX connection. What does the more than X days ago operator do? Select one answer. A, finds devices that performed an action more than a certain number of days ago. B, displays only devices that are inactive. C, matches exact OS versions. D, filters out devices with zero usage. Correct answer. A, finds devices that performed an action more than a certain number of days ago. Now let's explain. This operator is specifically used to filter devices based on actions like check-ins or enrollments that occurred before a certain threshold of days. For instance, if you're auditing devices that haven't contacted Jamf Pro in the last 30 days, this tool helps isolate them quickly. In contrast, option B might seem plausible, but inactivity isn't a tracked value. This operator doesn't assess device activity levels directly. Similarly, option C is off track because matching OS versions requires is or equals conditions, not a time-based operator. Lastly, option D refers to usage tracking, which isn't the purpose of this particular filter. So again, the right choice is finding devices that acted more than X days ago. You're searching for devices that do not have a specific app installed. Which operator should you use? Select one answer. A, does not have. B, not like. C, is not. D, not member of. Correct answer A, does not have. Let's go through the explanation. The does not have operator is designed to check for the absence of specific items such as software or files, making it the ideal choice when identifying devices that are missing a particular app. On the other hand, not like is used for partial string matching and wouldn't apply when verifying app presence. Similarly, is not works for exact string comparisons but doesn't evaluate file or app availability. Lastly, not member of pertains to group membership, not app installation status. So the right operator for this task is clearly does not have. An administrator wants all computers in a university lab to download the latest minor macOS update and install it during the holiday break. What should they configure in Jamf Pro? Select one answer. A, set the install action to prompt user to install. B, choose latest version based on device eligibility. C, set the install action to download and schedule to install. D, select latest major version. The correct answer is C, set the install action to download and schedule to install. Now let me explain. When the goal is to automate updates at a specific time without user intervention, the download and schedule to install option is ideal. This setting lets the administrator push the update and control exactly when it's installed, which is perfect for scheduling installations during breaks. Option A, which prompts the user to install, doesn't meet the requirement because it puts the decision in the user's hands rather than automating the process. Option B ensures that devices get a compatible version, but it doesn't offer control over scheduling, which is crucial in this scenario. And option D might accidentally upgrade to a major version, which could be disruptive, especially if only a minor update was intended. So, the best practice for managing lab devices during scheduled downtime is clearly to download and schedule the install. You have added several users to a static user group, but notice some users are missing from the group view. What might be the cause? A. The users need to reset their passwords. B. The users have not checked in with Jamf Pro. C. The admin must click Save twice. D. The users must manually accept the group invite. The correct answer is B. The users have not checked in with Jamf Pro. Let's go ahead and explain why this is the case. When users are added to a static group in Jamf Pro, their membership only updates and reflects in the system after their devices check in. So if a user hasn't checked in since being added, they simply won't appear in the group view yet. Now, although resetting passwords may sound relevant, it actually has nothing to do with how group memberships are updated. Likewise, Jamf Pro doesn't require the admin to save the group twice. Once is enough to register the change. And as for accepting a group invite, that only applies in dynamic or interactive workflows. Static groups do not rely on user actions to finalize membership. So ultimately, if users don't show up in a static group, the most likely cause is they haven't yet checked in with Jamf Pro. Which two distribution options are available when deploying a mobile device configuration profile? A. Install automatically without user interaction. B. Install manually via terminal. C. Make available in Jamf self-service. D. Send as a .mobileconfig email attachment. The correct answers are A. Install automatically without user interaction, and C. Make available in Jamf self-service. Now let's explain why these are the correct choices. First, Jamf Pro supports silent installation of profiles, meaning profiles can be installed automatically without requiring any user interaction. This is particularly useful for enforcing compliance settings across devices in a managed environment. In addition, profiles can be made available through Jamf self-service. This option lets users voluntarily install the configuration on their own, which is useful for non-critical profiles or optional services. On the other hand, terminal-based installation is not applicable here because Jamf Pro manages profiles through its interface and MDM protocol, not through manual command line steps. Similarly, distributing a .mobileconfig file via email is not part of Jamf Pro's official deployment methods. That would fall outside managed workflows and lack enforcement or visibility. So in summary, Jamf Pro enables both silent installation and user-initiated installation through self-service for mobile device configuration profiles. What is the default search preference in Jamf Pro user account settings? Select one answer. A. Contains. B. Exact match. C. Starts with. D. Wildcard. Correct answer. B. Exact match. Let's now explain why this is the correct option. By default, Jamf Pro uses exact match as the search preference in user account settings. This means unless a user manually changes it, the system will only return results that match the search term exactly. On the other hand, contains is a flexible filter, but must be manually selected by the user if they want broader matches. Similarly, starts with is another optional filter and not the default. Lastly, wildcard isn't a preset search preference at all. It's something applied manually within the search string. So to wrap up, Jamf Pro defaults to exact match for searches, making B the right choice. When configuring an app update schedule, which time reference is used internally by Jamf Cloud, select one answer. A. Coordinated Universal Time, UTC. B. Device's local time. C. Central Standard Time, CST. The admin's configured time zone. Correct answer, A. Coordinated Universal Time, UTC. Now let's explain why this is the correct answer. Jamf Cloud uses Coordinated Universal Time, or UTC, as its internal reference for scheduling tasks like app updates. This ensures a consistent baseline across global environments, regardless of where administrators or devices are located. On the contrary, device local time isn't factored into Jamf Cloud's backend scheduling, as it varies across user locations and could cause inconsistencies. Similarly, Central Standard Time is a US time zone, not a global default, so it wouldn't be the internal reference. Lastly, an admin's configured time zone only affects how schedules are displayed in the interface. It doesn't influence how they're actually processed. So again, the system's internal operations rely on UTC, making option A the correct choice. Which option ensures the macOS update executes at a specific time with no user interaction? A. Download only. B. Download, install, and allow deferral. C. Download and install. D. Download and schedule to install. The correct answer is D. Download and schedule to install. Now let's take a moment to explain. The option Download and Schedule to Install ensures that the macOS update is executed at a specific time without requiring user interaction. This leverages declarative device management to handle updates silently and on schedule, making it ideal for administrative control in environments like classrooms or labs. On the other hand, Download Only simply fetches the update but does not initiate installation, so it doesn't fulfill the requirement. Download, Install, and Allow Deferral gives users the ability to delay the update, which goes against the goal of no user interaction. Lastly, Download and Install does not guarantee when the update happens because the timing is dependent on the device's state and isn't scheduled precisely. So, to ensure automatic updates with full control over timing and no user prompts, the best option is to use Download and Schedule to Install. Which iOS versions are required for scheduling updates via declarative device management? A. iOS 15 and later, B. iOS 14 and later, C. iOS 17 and later, D. iOS 16 and later. Correct answer, C. iOS 17 and later. Let's explain why this is the right answer. Declarative device management introduced advanced scheduling features for software updates starting with iOS 17. That means only devices running iOS 17 or later can leverage these capabilities to set update actions for a specific time. Although managed updates began earlier, they didn't include this level of automation. For instance, iOS 14 allowed managed distribution but lacked scheduling support. Similarly, while iOS 16 introduced more control, declarative scheduling officially became available with iOS 17. So, the only version that meets the specific requirement for scheduling via declarative device management is iOS 17 and later. A school district uses self-service to allow staff to install a VPN client. A user reports that they see the policy in self-service, but are prompted unexpectedly when it tries to access a network volume. What is the most likely cause? Select one answer. A. The policy has an invalid trigger assigned. B. The scope of the policy is incorrect. C. Jamf Pro isn't safe listed in the Privacy Preferences Policy Control payload. D. The policy has exceeded its execution frequency, like A. The correct answer is C. Jamf Pro isn't safe listed in the Privacy Preferences Policy Control payload. Let's now explain what's going on here. On macOS 10.15 or later, if a script or policy tries to access certain protected areas like network volumes, the system enforces privacy prompts unless the app performing the action is explicitly safe listed using the Privacy Preferences Policy Control PPPC payload. In this case, Jamf Pro isn't safe listed, so macOS prompts the user for permission when it detects this kind of access. Now, why not the other options? Triggers, as in option A, only define when the policy runs, not whether it prompts the user, so that doesn't apply. Option B mentions scope, but since the user sees the policy in self-service, they're already within scope, so scope is not the issue. Option D refers to execution frequency, which could block the policy from running altogether, but it wouldn't cause a privacy prompt. So again, the most accurate reason is that Jamf Pro isn't safe listed in the Privacy Preferences payload, causing the system to request user permission when the policy runs. What can be configured using the Restart Options payload? Select one answer. A. Printer mapping. B. User account creation. C. Software update scheduling. D. Kernel cache rebuild paths. Correct answer. D. Kernel cache rebuild paths. Let's break it down clearly. Restart options in Jamf Pro are designed to handle specific system-level configurations that require restarts, one of which is rebuilding kernel caches. This is particularly useful when deploying kernel extensions or other low-level changes that require a reboot to finalize. Now, while it might seem like software update scheduling could belong here, that's actually managed by the software updates payload, not restart options. Similarly, user account creation is configured using the local accounts payload, and printer mapping is handled by the printers payload. So when you're working with restart behaviors tied to kernel extensions, restart options is the correct tool. And that's why the valid configuration here is kernel cache rebuild paths. An admin wants to prevent a script from executing on computers running macOS versions earlier than 12.0. What should they configure? Select one answer. A. Assign script to a smart group. B. Set script category to scripts macOS 12+. C. Use the limitations tab to set OS requirements. D. Use markdown in the script notes. Correct answer. C. Use the Limitations tab to set OS requirements. Now let me explain. To control script execution based on OS version, the Limitations tab is the correct place to define which versions are allowed. By specifying macOS 12.0 or later in this tab, the script is automatically blocked on incompatible systems. Meanwhile, assigning a script to a smart group can help scope the policy, but it doesn't enforce OS restrictions on its own. Similarly, setting the script category is purely for organizational purposes and has no effect on when or where the script runs. Lastly, Markdown in the script notes is just for documentation and does not influence execution logic. So once again, the Limitations tab is what ensures the script runs only on supported macOS versions. For each statement below, indicate whether the answer is true or false. Setting the policy to run at recurring check-in means it runs immediately when a computer checks in. True. Specifying private var itadmin as the home directory hides the user from the login screen. False. Selecting allow user to administer computer grants administrator privileges. True. The update inventory payload is selected by default in the maintenance section. True. Let's explain each of these statements in order. The first statement is true because the recurring check-in trigger ensures a policy executes the next time the device checks in with Jamf Pro. It's not instant by default, but it does execute at the next available check-in, which is the intended behavior of this trigger. The second statement is false. While using a path like /private/var/tadmin as a home directory might hide the user folder from Finder, it does not hide the user from the macOS login window. That display is managed separately. The third statement is true. The allow user to administer computer checkbox gives the account administrative privileges, meaning that user can manage system-level changes. Lastly, the fourth statement is true. In the maintenance payload of a Jamf policy, the update inventory option is selected by default. This helps keep device records up to date with the Jamf Pro server. What is the main purpose of the local accounts payload in a policy? A. To configure software deployment preferences. B. To manage system settings remotely. C. To create, delete, or modify user accounts. D. To bind the computer to a network directory. The correct answer is C. To create, delete, or modify user accounts. Let's go ahead and explain this. The local accounts payload is specifically designed to manage local user accounts. This includes actions like creating a new user, changing passwords, assigning administrative rights, or removing an existing account. Therefore, selecting this payload directly targets account-related tasks on a managed Mac. On the other hand, software deployment preferences are controlled through software update or package payloads, not local accounts. Likewise, managing system settings remotely involves broader MDM functions and is not tied to this specific payload. Lastly, binding to a network directory is managed through the directory bindings payload instead. So again, the right answer is to use the local accounts payload to create, delete, or modify user accounts. Which of the following can be customized in the self-service configuration settings in Jamf Pro? Select three answers. A. User login method. B. Home directory location. C. Bookmarks label. D. Installation path. Correct answers. A. User login method. C. Bookmarks label. D. Installation path. Now let's explain. To begin with, user login method is a customizable option because administrators can define how users authenticate into the self-service portal, such as using LDAP or local accounts. Next, bookmarks label is also configurable. This label can be renamed to terms like resources or websites to match organizational preferences or enhance usability. Furthermore, installation path refers to where the self-service application is installed on user devices. Jamf Pro allows you to set this location as needed. In contrast, home directory location is unrelated to self-service. It pertains to user account configuration, not how self-service behaves or is deployed. So in summary, the customizable settings in self-service include login method, bookmarks label, and installation path. Which utility displays messages to users on a Jamf managed computer? Select one answer. A. Jamf AD. B. Jamf Helper. C. Jamf Daemon. D. Composer. Correct answer. B. Jamf Helper. Now let's explain why this is correct. Jamf Helper is the utility specifically designed to present on-screen messages to users on macOS devices managed by Jamf. It's useful for showing alerts, progress bars, or instructions, especially during policy deployment. On the other hand, Jamf Aid handles authentication tasks, particularly when integrating with identity providers like Microsoft Entra ID, but it doesn't display user-facing messages. Jamf Daemon operates in the background to enforce management tasks silently and doesn't interact directly with the user through notifications. Finally, Composer is a packaging tool used to build custom software installers. It's not involved in user messaging. So once again, the utility that displays messages to users is Jamf Helper.